Hello, I'm Debbie Rick. Like you, I'm wild about Washington. If you've always wanted to get into salmon fishing, now is the time. The pink salmon are back this year. They're easy to catch, the limit is high, and they are plentiful.
We have a tremendous number of pinks coming back this year. Over 2 million to Puget Sound alone, another 12 million to the Fraser River. So pink fishing starts out here at CQ, and even Nia Bay, some folks will fish for pinks. But the big places start at CQ, and you can fish for pinks all the way in until they hit the Snohomish and Skagit River systems. Perhaps the most popular pink fishery in Puget Sound is what we call Humpy Hollow. It's between Mukilteo and the shipwreck, and folks go out there and fish a white flasher and a pink hoochie and have just a kick catching pinks all day long. And it's a nice protected fishery as opposed to being out here on the big water. And it's a real good place to take kids and get them into catching fish and catching lots of fish so they don't get turned off. This year we're going to have a 4-fish limit in August in areas 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 8, 2, and 9. So that's CQ all the way to Port Angeles, Port Townsend, San Juan Islands, Point No Point, Possession, and of course Humpy Hollow next to Everett. A pink is a 2-year-old fish. They pop out of the gravel in the spring and they go straight downriver into the ocean, and they only stay out in the ocean for 2 years, and then they come back to spawn. Your Chinook will stay out in the ocean for 2, 3, 4, or even 5 years, and that's what gives them the larger size. So being a 2-year fish, the pink, a 2 to 5 pound pink is usually a pretty good fish. They are kind of a scrappy little fighter, especially if you downsize your tackle to accommodate them. In other words, you don't need the 40 to 50 pound test line like you do for Chinook. Gear down to your steelhead gear, a nice 10 to 12 pound test line, and a nice limber 7 or 8 foot rod, and they can be a lot of fun. All the way through August should be pretty good, and even into about mid-September. Starting mid-August, they'll also start to show up in large numbers in the Snohomish and Skagit River systems, and we have some tremendous fisheries inside the rivers for pinks there. A lot of folks will just anchor up and throw a small thin-bladed spoon over the side, just plunk it on the bottom, and it can be a real relaxing, fun day, and the fishing can be just real firecracker hot. Today we're using the standby white flasher with a small mini pink hoochie. You want the hoochie about 16 to 20 inches behind the flasher, or a double-aught Dodger, white Dodger will work also. And we're fishing off downriggers so that we don't have to use a lot of extra weight. And we're fishing anywhere from 40 to 100 feet. And we're doing pretty darn good at catching pinks when we're out in them. The selective Chinook fishery, I think, has drawn a lot more people up here to CQ. For a lot of folks that don't know, we had about 5 days of fishing for Chinook last year when we could keep wild fish. And when we've gone to this hatchery fish only program, it's afforded people more opportunity to come up and fish. That's not in danger of closing the quota as quickly. And it's been real nice to see all these boats out here fishing and enjoying an opportunity to catch a nice big Chinook. At the same time, if the Chinook fishing's a little slow, you can fish for pinks and have fun and get your kids into some fish, and they don't have to get bored trying to wait all day long to hook one Chinook. You can take them out and get them into 4 or 5 pinks and just let them have a blast. So for the next month and a half or so, this is going to be happening all through Puget Sound. Coming out and fishing for pinks, or humpies is what the guys call them.
Recently, one of our hatcheries hosted a very special day of fishing for young people who don't often get a chance to fish. 15-year-old Randy has never seen a fish, and she never will. But Randy reminds the rest of us what we so easily forget, that fishing is more about feeling than seeing.
It's really fun because when you catch the fish, when you have the pull out in the water, and then you feel the tugging of the fish on the hook thing. It's really exciting because I don't know, if the fish is going to be really big or really little, and I don't really get the chance to fish that much. So I really enjoy doing this, and it's really fun. It's slimy and it feels wet, and I can feel it breathing, except it can't really breathe very well because it's not in the water.
What I get out of this is remembering when I was the age of these kids, disability or no disability, to come to an event like this. This is something that would stay in my memory for the rest of my life. It's just making memories and being a part of these kids' memories. It's going to impact them somehow or another for the rest of their lives, and to watch that unfold is really satisfying.
I think it's great for the kids to do this. As I have two little daughters. I have one that's 6 months old and one that's 3 years old. And to watch a little kid's eyes light up and get to hold the resource in their hands and share that experience with them is priceless. It's something you can't explain.
Several of our biologists are working to reestablish species whose numbers have dwindled in Washington. The purple martin is one bird that is making a comeback. We want to thank the many volunteers who are making this possible.
Purple martins are our largest North American swallow. They are famous for their brilliant purple of the male and the beautiful dawn song that they sing as a colony in the mornings. They are a native bird of Washington. They are by nature a cavity nesting bird, which means that they use holes in trees that are made by other birds, primarily woodpeckers. Purple martins have always been in Washington, but they declined from 1900 to about 1960 due to timber practices that removed the number of available cavities, as well as competition with non-native starlings and house sparrows. The Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, in cooperation with agencies from British Columbia, Oregon, and California, are working to recover the purple martin population through a nest box program. Several volunteers have been very important in this nest box program, and one of them is a volunteer with me today, Kevin Lee.
I got interested when I felt like I could make a difference in the recovery of this species that had been on the decline, and it wasn't something that involved a big major expensive program, but it was something that an individual citizen could do on their own, and the rewards would come as the birds came in, and that's exactly what's happened in this case. Is that the more birds I get back, the more motivated I get, and the more other people are getting interested in the whole project. So it's really snowballing. It's clear that we're just well below the numbers that the martins used to be at. There are reports from the 1930s or so of thousands of martins just being in Seattle itself. And right now in the Seattle area, there's only about 20 nesting pairs in the entire city. I think their disappearance would be it's just a sign of decline. I mean, here it's a native species, it's a migratory species. There is, I guess, a warm fuzziness involved with it. I'll have to admit that. But I would hate to see a species disappear just because people didn't get up and do something as simple as provide a nest cavity for this migratory bird. It's really very simple to make a nest cavity available. If people are interested in learning more about purple martins, there's a lot that they can get from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, including nest boxes themselves, as well as the information. A simple search on the internet will provide a wealth of information. There is a big difference, however, between the western martins and the eastern, and so they need to be sure to contact the sources from the western U.S.
Keeping healthy populations of native birds in our state requires accurately surveying their numbers. One of those surveys was recently conducted in Spokane County.
This morning we're out at Bear Lake north of Spokane, and what I'm doing is a series of point counts for birds. And idea is to try to keep track of the birds. I stop at 9 points at this site, and count the number of species that I see in here, and also the number of each species that I see in here. And I do that for an interval of first 3 minutes and then another 2 minutes, which is a total of 5 minutes at each site. And this is part of a national program, in particular a Pacific Northwest program of point counts that the protocol is all the same, so that we'll be able to compare these across the state, across the 3 states for sure, of Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. And it's sort of a cooperative between many state and federal agencies, and also under the umbrella initially of Partners in Flight to keep common birds common. And with the hopes that as we do these, of course, we develop checklists for the particular areas. We get to know what birds are there, but also if we are able to do them for a number of years, we'll be able to in the future hopefully use them as sort of indexes or indices to see how much they change over time. The length of time that we've been doing these counts is approximately 5 years here in Spokane. And I do them with the help of volunteers, 3 other volunteers. We do a total of 5 different areas around Spokane area. Probably one of the hardest things is what we've talked about before, is trying to filter out some of the most common birds, like American robin is very loud. Song sparrows are often, of course, not very scared of the observer, so they'll come up right next to you, and you have to be able to hear the more quiet birds on the perimeter. And that's just through years of selective hearing and listening and trying to determine what those quieter birds are. Like right now we're hearing a western tanager above us, song sparrows, house finches, and you just have to be able to write down those birds. Just like foreign language, it'd sure be nice if we were able to learn those real young. It'd probably come easier. And it does seem like my son, just from being around me, has been able to do that and retain the different birds.
Here is where you can see some of Washington's wildlife in coming weeks. This has been Wild About Washington, brought to you by the employees of Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Working together, we can save Washington's outdoor heritage for future generations. Thank you for watching.
It's a beautiful day for a race. Hey, hey,